Here we go. We're off and running. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 436 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. 12/24/24. Joined today by Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun Sentinel on this Christmas Eve. So to you and to everybody watching and listening, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Boxing Day, whatever it is that any and all of you are celebrating, happy whatever it is. And that goes to you as well, Perk.
Yes. What Poop said.
I like that. That's one of my lines. I like that. And for the Dolphins, the good Christmas right off the bat, and we're going to talk about a couple of different things. The first one is the overall playoff picture and what needs to happen and all that, and how realistic it is. It's not. It has to start, and Perk is giving me the finger.
I have to get my water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It starts for a very big Dolphin Christmas present for the Pittsburgh Steelers to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day, because if they don't, Kansas City wins that game, clinches number one seed for them for the playoffs in the AFC, and then they have no incentive for Week 18 against the Denver Broncos, a team the Dolphins need to have lose twice. And if the Chiefs clinch number one seed based on experience, don't expect to see Patrick Mahomes out there, particularly since he's dealing with a high ankle sprain from which he miraculously recovered to play 4 days later, because that's what he always does. And I don't know if there's a little bit of drama queen in there or he's just got great recuperative powers. Although, again, as with everything Chiefs related, kind of over it personally. Any thoughts on anything I just said, Perk?
I'm still in the same place that I've been as long as the Dolphins have a 1% chance. Teron Armstead, you're playing not Patrick Paul, et cetera. So let's go out here and Dolphins, you've got to try to win this game. It's not time to give players vacations and rest periods and evaluations and all that.
And also means Calais Campbell, you're staying on the roster.
Yes.
It would require a lot of things, and I'm going to go through it very quickly. It's very simple. What needs to happen for the Dolphins to make the playoffs. Stranger things have happened. I recall the Steelers a couple of years back needed like 17 different things to happen, and boom, 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 plop, they're in the playoffs. For the Dolphins, here it is again. They need one thing's a must, and then two out of the other three. The one that's a must, obviously, the Dolphins have to win out at Cleveland at the Jets. If they can't do that, they don't deserve to even be discussed in the conversation of playoffs. If they do, they're 9-8, which is not horrible. It's not a great season. And then at that point, we'll revisit the whole why in the hell didn't they get a better quarterback heading into the season. So that's one. That's a must. And then two of those three have to happen. Doesn't matter which ones. It could affect seeding, but at this particular point, who cares where they're seated as long as they get in. So two of those three. They need either the Chargers to lose their final two games at New England, at Las Vegas. Thanks. They need the Colts to lose at least one of their final two games at the New York Giants, at home against Jacksonville. Another yikes. Or they need the Denver Broncos to lose their final two games at Cincinnati on Saturday. And Cincinnati still has slim playoff hopes. They need more than the Dolphins to get into the playoffs, but they have a shot. So that game, yes, I could definitely see the Broncos losing that game. But then there goes the Week 18 game against Kansas City at Denver. But if Kansas City has nothing to play for in terms of playoff seeding, that's a game that I think the Broncos probably would win. So the likelihood of two of the other three things happening, not great. And that's where the Dolphins probably going to wind up getting shut out of the playoffs, because I do see them winning their final two games.
Yeah. All right. I've got the Dolphins losing in Cleveland, but
really.
Well, you know what, Poop? I've got to see it, and boy, I don't have my numbers here in front of me. I think that they are like 2-6 in December road games or something like that. I know they beat Washington, and but somebody else, I think. But anyway, it's they've played, the vast majority of their opponents have been very good teams in the December road games. It's not the temperature, it's the quality of the opponent. But I've still got to see them beat to win a December road game. So I want to see them do it. I want to see them do it.
Yeah, I mean, they spanked Washington last year, and that game wasn't even close. The game was over in the first quarter. So I'm not. And again, as I wrote on Miami Dolphins on SI.com today, where the content is always free, not a shot at anybody. Dolphins this year, when Tua as a quarterback, are 5-1 against teams that currently are not in a playoff spot. The only loss being against Arizona in Tua's first game back, at a time when Arizona was playing really well, and then Arizona's season went bad. But at the time, that was a good team. But that's the only loss against a team that is not in a playoff spot. They have a couple of other ones, but that's what was with Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley or Tim Boyle, the quarterback, which is not the same thing. So, and the Browns, I'm sorry, Dorian
Thompson Robinson.
Yeah, what I have, for some reason, I have Bethel in my mind, and I have Brew in my mind, because the Dolphins once upon a time drafted a cornerback by the name of Dorian Brew. And for some reason, I always want to put Brew in there. He was a third-round pick out of Kansas, I believe, in 96 or 97, one of Jimmy Johnson's first drafts, and didn't make the team. Anyway, so yeah, DTR, not a great quarterback. I mean, he is in the same mold in terms of style as Tyler Huntley, and I don't think he's quite as good as Tyler Huntley. So, no offense. And then the Browns also don't have Nick Chubb, who wound up on IR. And if there's certain guys around the NFL that you root for because they're good guys who have overcome tough luck, I mean, Nick Chubb is one of those. It's like heartbreaking that he again wound up on IR, so they don't have to face him. I just don't see how you lose against Cleveland.
It's been a strange season. I would generally agree with you, except this is a team that this year has lost to Mason Rudolph. And again, for the life of me, I don't know how you come out of the bye going 0-3. They might be the only team in the league that went 0-3 after their bye this season. 2 of those games with Tua. So again, it's just been kind of an unsettled, weird season for the Dolphins. If I'm wrong on this one, and I surely hope that I am, then I'm wrong. But I've just got to see it first.
Okay, and here's a good point, an interesting point you bring, because I honestly don't see it. And then the Jets, who somehow lost 19-9 without punting once in the entire game. I don't know. I don't even know if they turned the ball over, but it was like missed field goal, couple of fourth downs where they don't get it. I mean, how you not punt and score 9 points in the game is pretty weird. Right. But again, the Jets have perfected the art of losing this season, which we saw at Hard Rock Stadium, because they should have won that game. When they get a first down with 27 at the 27-yard line with a minute and a half left in a tie ball game, that should have been a loss for the Dolphins. Anyway, here's my thing. If the Dolphins wind up 9-8 and miss the playoffs, I'm okay, because I know you're an advocate of running it back. To me, it's not as I'm okay with status quo with some tweaks.
Yes.
Because again, I'm going to put a lot of it on how in the triple hell did you not be able to anticipate that A2 would get hurt, and B, Skylar Thompson was not it. He was not him. Some people like to say that expression as a backup quarterback. Skylar Thompson is not him. So, and if that's not addressed in the offseason, fire them on the spot. I mean, if training camp 2025 begins with Skylar Thompson and Mike White as the 2 quarterbacks on the roster, along with Tua, I want pink slips. I mean like fast. Anyway, if the Dolphins can't win their last 2 games after what we've been through, no, I'm sorry, but I'm having major discussion. And I don't think it's going to happen, though, because again, we saw what happened at the end of the game, and after the game, courtesy of the Miami Dolphins video of Stephen Ross giving Mike McDaniel a game ball after the game.
Yeah.
Exactly the circumstance. Was it because he beat his mentor, Kyle Shanahan, whose team has, 37 guys on IR or something like that? I mean, it was weird.
It's very weird. It makes it gives the impression that the Dolphins are proud of mediocrity. And, you award a game ball when you improve to 7-8 and you beat a team that's 6-9. It's like, what was so special there? And here's the other thing, Poop. The 29 points is great. Your freaking offense scored 2 touchdowns. You had 5 field goals, and the last touchdown came at the end of the game. Like, this was not a good offensive performance. Like, why are you rewarding this, Steve Ross? Like, give another game ball to Jason Sanders, if anything. I mean, what's the reward here? What are we settling for here? Like, I just don't get this. I don't get it. And again, the reason why I say run it back intact with changes, because you've got to play a more aggressive physical style, but you're financially married to this core now, right? Of Tyreek and Tua and Waddle and Ramsey, at least for this season. The people who are best qualified to oversee this operation are Mike McDaniel, because of his relationship with Tua, and then Mike McDaniel because of his relationship with Chris Greer. Again, I think if you bring in another GM, I'm not sure how many quality GMs are going to want to stake their future on, I'm sorry, injury-prone Tua, and you don't have your own head coach. Your head coach does not have his own quarterback. So I could just see dysfunction, that people realize I'm a lame duck, I'm one and done, and everybody's not moving in the same direction. Again, I will give Greer and McDaniel huge credit for putting everybody in that organization on the same page and moving them in the same direction. That was not the case when Brian Flores was coach. So, yes, I am an advocate of running it back, but with the stipulation that you are a more aggressive and physical team.
And you get yourself a better backup quarterback, or you're gone after the draft.
On the spot. I agree with you.
I mean,
On the spot. The first day of training camp, you will be fired.
No. The first day of the offseason program, you're gone.
That's even better.
That's not addressed. And here's the thing about, and I know a lot of fans want Chris Greer's head on a platter.
Yeah.
Here's the thing in his defense. While it's easy to point, okay, he's been the general manager in title since 2016, no playoff wins. He also had in 2024 what arguably I would say right now is probably his second best draft and his best draft since 2016, because Chop's coming on, played really, really good football lately. Patrick Paul has shown you enough to be optimistic, even though he's not there. And then you have Malik Washington, who's a hit in the 6th round. Not there on Jalen Wright, particularly after Sunday when he basically didn't 0 snaps. I think we jumped the gun on this one. He's shown flashes, so there could be something there. However, running backs are a dime a dozen, and you surrendered a 3rd round pick to get him. So not ready to call that one anything yet, or certainly or hit or miss. Patrick McMorris looks like he's got promise. He made the team as a 6th round pick. The coaching staff likes him. So it looks overall like a pretty good pick. And no, don't tell me about 2020 when you have 5 picks in the first 2 rounds. They didn't max out those at all. In 2021, they got 3 good players with their first 3 picks, with Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, and Javon Holland. But exactly how good are they, and were there better options? And there's certainly, if you're going to look at Jalen Waddle, Penei Sewell to me still again would have been the screaming choice, particularly when you trade from 12 to 6. So this is where Chris Greer, I think it's easy to say, look at the overall picture and needs to be fired. But again, he's coming off like what looks like a pretty good draft.
He is. And I'll say this also, Poop, potential. But look at your pass rush potential with Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, and Mo Kamara. It's potentially very good. Now, look, I'm not convinced yet that both Phillips and Chubb are going to come back at 100%. I think both of them might max out at 80%. But like I've also said, if you get 6 sacks from Chop and 6 sacks from Chubb and 6 from Jalen Phillips, none are going to the Pro Bowl, but you have the basis of a good pass rush there. You've still got inside pressure from Zach Sealer and his 8 or 10 sacks. You'll have some line, so you'll be okay. You've got some really exciting pass rush potential on that defense.
And by the way, Ken, I think we can pretty much can we shed the underrated label on Zach Sealer and just call him what he is, which is a complete stud?
Yes, 100%. I agree 100%. He has crossed that threshold. He's a legit Pro Bowl caliber player. Whether he makes it or not, I don't know. But if you have 10 sacks last year, and what's he at now? 7.5? You are Pro Bowl caliber.
No, absolutely. And he plays a lot of snaps, and he's good against the run. I mean, that dude's a player. And if you check out the replay of the interception by Cater Kohu, Calais Campbell's the one who got the pressure on Purdy and prevented him from following through on the pass, which is why it was a duck in the middle of the field. Even though if you look at the overhead, coverage was pretty damn good all around Jennings as he was running a deep end. That had been required a surgical throw. I don't know if he would have been able to make it, but Campbell made that move. If you look at the play, this was like a little twist where Sealer was occupying two blockers with another San Francisco offensive lineman on the outside blocking, looking for somebody to block while Campbell is making his way straight to Purdy. That was impressive stuff. The only way he doesn't make the Pro Bowl is that there's some big names among the interior defensive linemen in the AFC, and we're talking about Cameron Hayward, who is a complete stud, Chris Jones, Quinnen Williams, even though I don't know he's had as great a year. So I don't think he's had as good a year as Zach Sealer, but he's a big name. So if Sealer doesn't make it because of reputation, but I think it should be clear by now, the dude is top end NFL interior defensive lineman. You mentioned the award, and you mentioned Jason Sanders, game ball. We should point out he was named AFC Special Teams Player of the Week on Tuesday. Normally the league hands out those awards on Wednesday. They moved it up this week because there are games on Wednesday, on Christmas Day, two actually pretty good games. Kansas City at Pittsburgh, followed by Baltimore at Houston. It's 4 AFC playoff teams. They've all clinched a playoff spot. The only one of any implication, again, for the Dolphins is that Pittsburgh KC games. Let me get your take on this. Can you first vouch and tell all the good folks we have not discussed this at all? I don't think we've spoken since the game. So we've had no prior conversations. You don't, and I didn't try to influence you in any way, shape, or form. Can you vouch for that?
I can. Even though I have no idea what you're about to say.
Even better. That proves it. Okay. By your count, Tyreek Hill had 2 or 3 drops against the 49ers.
Oof. I mean, definitely the slant over the middle, and I think the pass in the end zone that was tipped. That should have been caught to me. What? Yeah, that should. Yeah, that. Yeah. I'm sorry. You're a top level player, and your team needs you to make a play. Your team needs you to do something special. You got to do something special. Sorry.
Okay. Well, so those of you who are arguing with me on social media, you have Perk on your side.
Yeah.
Further proof that Perk doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Hey, I work for a site that has a paywall. What the hell do I know?
See, excellent point. Exactly. Just because you have a paywall doesn't mean you're more of an expert. And again, if you've played any kind of sport at any level, and a good friend of mine brought up the analogy, a tipped shot in hockey, if you're the goalie, nobody's going to blame the goalie if the shot is tipped and changes direction.
Mm-hmm.
This notion of you have to make the stop, you're getting paid for it, and the fact that Tyreek is getting paid a ton of money, that's irrelevant. I mean, Tyreek, first of all, let's establish Tyreek has never been known for having great hands.
Right.
That's not his calling card. He's not a guy who's going to make circuit catches like OBJ, for example. And by the way, anybody shocked that nobody has picked up a signed OBJ yet?
Not shocked.
Okay. With all due respect, the guy had a very good career. Didn't show anything with the Dolphins. Showed a guy who was basically done. But anyway, to me, the fact that the ball changed direction, however slightly at the last second like that, it's just a bitch of a play to make. If he makes the catch, everybody should have gone like, whoa, that's an incredible catch.
Yes.
And he didn't make it, does not make it a drop, in my very humble opinion, and I'm going to leave it at that. I will, however, bring up something else with Tyreek, who after the game is talking about, because he had another drop where it went through the defenseman, the defender had his hand grasping his jersey a little bit, but still the ball went through and went right through his hands. That to me was a drop. And the one that slant over in the first quarter was a drop. The one that was tipped, not in my book. But him saying maybe these issues, maybe the drops wouldn't happen if I had practiced more with Tua during the regular season. Okay, so now that is he suggesting that he wanted to practice and Mike McDaniel prevented him? And then And you guys asked Mike McDaniel, wasn't at his press conference, but you guys asked Mike McDaniel, who kind of tap danced around the question without specifically directly answering it. Again, who's responsible for making that decision of whether a guy practices or not? And if Tyreek thinks that was an issue, why is he talking about it after a game in week 16 and not doing something about it in week 4?
This whole thing, Poop, I wanted to kind of explode on Tyreek yesterday, but I didn't. And I'd asked Mike McDaniel 2 straight questions about Tyreek, and I wanted to ask a third, and it would have been, are you irritated that Tyreek chooses to go public with this after a victory? We had heard nothing about this before. Nothing. Mm-hmm. And after a victory in which he has bad stats and drops, he chooses to go public with this. Like, what is going on here? This is ridiculous. And for him to suggest that this is an issue because he's getting a vet rest day, it's like, Tyreek, first of all, you're a few days ago, you're talking about how bad your left wrist hurts and how it hampers you and you might need postseason surgery on it. So you want to go out there and practice on that busted left wrist? Does that make any sense at all? And then number 2, you're talking about these vet rest days. That's a sign of courtesy, of privilege. It goes to you and Teron Armstead and Kendall Lamb and Calais Campbell and Jordan Poyer, guys who have skins on the wall, guys who the coaching staff recognizes we need him to be healthy on Sunday, so we will do him the courtesy of giving him a break during the week. And now, Reek, you're like saying, no, I don't need that break. Like, what's going on here? Why doesn't somebody talk to Tyreek? I just don't get this. This is part of the culture change that needs to happen with the Dolphins, that somebody has got to take it upon themselves, whether it's a veteran player or a veteran coach or somebody has got to pull Reek aside and say, look, Reek, no disrespect, but this stuff has got to be toned down. It doesn't have to end. I know you have fun as a troll, but there's a time and a place for all of this stuff. There's a time and a place to go public with your complaint. We know you're frustrated. You had a bad game. You're watching HN go off and John New go off. That's cool. We understand, but just chill a little bit. That I would love for that culture change to happen, because it just looks like they let Tyreek do whatever the heck he wants to do.
Yeah, and you combine that with a lot of comments he makes and the trolling on social media, and all of us who cover the Dolphins love Tyreek because he provides content all the time. But there's some massive attention seeking there that I think I would imagine the Dolphins are like, oh my Lord, enough. Will he be quiet for 2 seconds? Yeah. And you also wonder if that didn't play a role in the Chiefs at some point saying, we put up with it, we deal with it because he's uber talented and all that. And then he wanted a new contract with the Chiefs, and they're like, well, if we give him all this money, we have to sacrifice elsewhere, and then we still have to deal with the amount of oxygen he soaks up. Maybe we're better off moving on, and certainly hasn't hurt him.
No, I mean, they basically chose, if I'm not mistaken, they gave that money to Chris Jones, or a lot of it, and won back-to-back Super Bowls, including last year led by the defense, which is led by Chris Jones. So they made the right decision there. I do think the Dolphins need to keep Tyreek. He remains their best player. I know Devon Achane is having a better season, but Tyreek remains their best player, better than Jalen Ramsey. You can make the argument, whatever, but I just you would get pennies on the dollar in trade, and I just don't know. Like, your offense just goes way down without Tyreek. It's not great right now, this second half of the season, but if defenses don't have to defend Tyreek or the threat of Tyreek, it's open season on this offense as it exists right now. So Tyreek has a lot of value to the team, and we all like Tyreek personally, but it's just professionally he's got to make some changes.
No, I agree. But are you holding your breath that it's going to happen?
No, No, unfortunately, no. That's again the culture change. That like some changes have to. And look, I'm not talking about Mike McDaniel doing a 180-degree change and trying to be like Tomlin or Harbaugh or Flo. That's fake for McDaniel. It wouldn't work. But he's just got to draw some lines, like with Tyreek. That would, we saw him bench David Long. We saw him take snaps from Raheem, from Durham Smythe. The penalties, right? The penalty problem has gone down. So we've seen Mike McDaniel crack down in some ways, but we need to see it go further. We need to see it happen more often.
No, I don't disagree. You brought this up, and see, HN, has become the focal point of the offense, and I wrote about this yesterday, or my writer Scott Solomon wrote about this on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. One of two players in the NFL with 500 yards receiving and rushing. The other one is Alvin Kamara. So the Dolphins have made Devon Achane the focal point of the offense. Is that good? Is that bad? The numbers, entering the game against the 49ers, unless I'm mistaken, he was under 4 yards per rushing attempt, which is not great.
Right.
And he's basically the poster child for the Dolphins becoming a dink and dunk passing game, which is, again, it's good when it works, when it's efficient. When they get behind the sticks, forget it. When
they trail in a game, it's tough.
Correct. And this is why, again, and we go back to this game against the 49ers. They caught a massive break. If Ricky Pearsall, the rookie first-round pick, had learned how to line up properly, Dolphins are up. Correct. And the second one negated a 16-yard completion to Deebo Samuel, which would have made it first and goal from the 2-yard line, with the Dolphins leading 16-10. All of a sudden, chances are it becomes 17-16, and the Dolphins are playing from behind. Instead, they go back, miss a field goal, and the Dolphins never trail. So it was no work of art, that win. It was good that they got the win, but like you said, I don't know that it'd be throwing parades or handing out game balls or doing massive celebrations on the sidelines as your photographer from the Sun Sentinel so very well captured with Steve Ross.
Yeah,
you'd have thought they'd win a playoff game. I don't want to see him crying or have a nasty face, but to whoop it up, dude, you just improved to 7-8. A little bit weird. I'm going to ask you this again later in upcoming weeks, but since we're here, if you had your vote for MVP right now would be who?
Zach Sealer. I say that pretty quickly. I think Achane would probably be second. But Zach shows up in all the big games. This dude gets tackles for losses. He gets sacks. He creates turnovers. He plays a high volume of snaps. He's had the best season on this team, and that is with all due respect to Achane, who has been outstanding, with all due respect to Calais Campbell, who has been outstanding, with all due respect to Jalen Ramsey, who has been good, Jonnu Smith, who has been good. I think Zach Sealer has been a difference maker on that line, and him chewing up those double teams has definitely helped Calais and Chop.
It's very interesting because you mentioned about 6 or 7 players, and there's one guy you didn't mention, you hater.
Jason Sanders?
And he adds another name and still doesn't mention him.
Don't say Tua. Oh, stop. Yeah. I know you're speaking on behalf of others. Let me just say this. Tua against, I'm a huge playoff team versus non-playoff team guy. Tua versus playoff teams, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Non-playoff teams, 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Come on, what's wrong with this picture?
Okay. He wouldn't get my vote either. I think considering the overall success he had, I would probably put him in the conversation. He certainly wouldn't be my choice. I think Zach Sealer would be my choice as well. The guy's he's just been ridiculously consistent. And if you recall, the defense had a little of a lull when he was out of the lineup. He comes back against the Rams, and immediately, first play, he sniffs out a screen. It's a 5-yard loss, and the defense won that game. The guy's been balling out like crazy, which would be another. If Chris Greer has to argue his case to retain his job after the season, if I'm Chris Greer, I'm like, Dude, look, your team MVP last year is a guy I claimed off waivers from Baltimore. I think that deserves something.
Yep. By the way, can I say something real quick? Can we put a priority on retaining Cater? Sorry,
you're gonna do it anyway, so go for
it. Can we put a priority on retaining Cater Kohu in the offseason? That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Unless I'm mistaken, he's under contract or he's an RFA. So
he's an RFA. He's an RFA.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, the dude's been balling.
Yes.
Dude
yes.
and very good.
And I've said this. I pretty much Cater is a grown ass man. I really like him. He's very intentional and meticulous about the way he goes about his business. Very professional. He's one of the first ones pregame out there. He goes through all his exercises. I pretty much only tweet two things about Cater. Cater Kohu is a grown ass man, and Cater Kohu is going to be an 8 or 10 year starter in this league. That's it. I'm not saying he's going to the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but this dude is a solid NFL player.
Oh, no, I completely agree. And to paraphrase somebody who wrote last year, a good friend of ours, something about the Dolphins having a Cater problem. No, they don't have a Cater problem this year. Cater has been
not. Adam Beasley, yes, sir.
Yeah, that one's for you, Adam Beasley. If you happen to watch this, or maybe you know what? Props to you, Mr. Beasley, for providing the motivation. Cater Kohu to show. He was like, "I'm going to show that Adam Beasley I can ball," because he's been great. That's going to wrap it up. On that note, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Check out my good friend Perk's content at sunsentinel.com. His weekly Dolphins deep dive with Perk, which this week was Monday. I'm sure it's available. You just look it up. Read my content, please, on Miami Dolphins on SI.com, which is free, no paywall and all that. And let me reiterate, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Boxing Day, Happy whatever it is you celebrate, whatever name of the holiday you celebrate. It's the holiday season for everyone and all. So again, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we will be back here on Thursday. Thanks, everyone.